So, hello and welcome to our very first series of a new program called Voices of Consciousness Kriya Yogis. Now, we have with us three very sincere practitioners of Consciousness Kriya. We have Rekha Murali from Chennai, we have Aditya Nagpal from Jammu, and we have Karthik Narayan from Hyderabad. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining in at short notice. What we're aiming to achieve here is to have a discussion to understand what Consciousness Kriya is and to hear from those who are practicing Kriya regularly on what are the changes that they see in them and how's their journey been as Kriya Yogis. Let me start with first an introduction on what Consciousness Kriya is. So this is a technique which has been downloaded by Mohanji from Mahavtar Babaji. It's one of the most powerful techniques which can actually fast forward your spiritual progress towards freedom from the shackles of your mind, towards liberation, moksha, whatever name we call. So without wasting much time, let me start with Aditya. So Aditya, what is Consciousness Kriya? And since you've been practicing Kriya for some time, what does Consciousness Kriya mean for you?
Yeah. So thanks, Preethi. Thanks for that introduction. So Kriya is basically a technique, and it's a combination of breath and visualization, and it's a lifestyle. So you can call it, and you can take it as a practice or a lifestyle. So Mohanji says that it's a lifestyle, and we also have Kriya vows that we need to take and follow as Kriya Yogis. So that is what Kriya is. And for me, basically, it's a cleansing process. It cleans you inside out. So it removes all the garbage and all the negative things that you've been storing for I don't know how many lifetimes. I cannot see through all that. But yeah, that's what I have experienced, that it cleanses me and whatever contamination goes inside me. So it gets it out immediately. So that process of, cleansing has speeded up a lot after practicing Kriya. So for me, it's basically a cleansing process. And yes, we follow a certain technique. So yeah.
So let me quickly go to Karthik. So Karthik, are there any restrictions that we have while we practice Kriya? Is there anything are there any do's and don'ts that Kriya Yogis need to follow?
Calling it restrictions, I think we can say there are certain lifestyle changes that we have to look at. But even before I get there, one of the most important aspects of this particular practice, that being an extremely powerful practice, extremely powerful technique, as Preethi just said, any powerful technique means that it needs our single point commitment. The commitment, the consistency of purpose, which comes from conviction that you set a goal for yourself, and if liberation is the goal, then automatically the conviction comes. And once the conviction is there, consistency is part of the process, and there is commitment. So that is very, very important, and I believe that is non-negotiable in this path. And next, coming to the so-called restrictions, I wouldn't call them actually restrictions. I would actually say that they are actually certain lifestyle changes that we have to bring in if we want this particular process to really, really have the effect that it is meant to give us. There is always, as we say, there is a certain design, but for that design or for that particular practice to give the proper fruits, there is a system that we have to follow. And here it is a process of purification, as Aditya just said. And purification does not just mean that we can achieve purification just through a practice. We have to put that effort in our lifestyle. If we don't change the lifestyle, then we are not helping the process. We are not helping the practice. So they actually go hand in hand, like the two pedals of a wheel. One helps the other. So as we live a life of non-violence, for example, an ahimsa lifestyle really helps, where I'm not consciously hurting anybody. And it's a much deeper concept. We can't go into that now, but just to give an overview, yes, an ahimsa lifestyle. And also things like having that purity as much as possible. We bring it in our awareness in thought, word, and deed. How pure I am. How can I stay away from negativity at all levels? Negative thoughts, negative emotions, and actions. And then comes the most important part, that is selfless. To become selfless in our life, to move the transition from selfish to selfless. So that is a process. And as we become progressively selfless, that is, we can be more compassionate, try and practice unconditional love, be kind, be caring, and use every opportunity to help and serve without expecting anything in return. I mean, we do a lot of work in this world, but we always have expectations. So that is a huge transition, I think, for any seeker to do it with the same kind of energy and commitment, but don't expect anything in return. So that kind of really cleanses the mind and puts it in a place where the practice really becomes more powerful.
Lovely. So I also know that consciousness kriya as such is something which is, I mean, something so precious and so powerful. It's actually given free of charge. So I know that Mohanji does not charge anything for kriya. So the other question that comes to many people who would like to learn about consciousness kriya and probably get trained in that is, do you need to take Mohanji as your guru in order to practice consciousness kriya? So Rekha, can you just kind of help us with this question?
Yes, Preethi, thank you so much. I would actually say a yes and a no. Because
yes and no, okay.
Yes and a no. Because why yes? Let me go into that first. Mohanji is the source for consciousness kriya. Mohanji is actually the person behind who's giving us this beautiful technique called consciousness kriya. So that is why I would say yes, and we need to respect this living master who has brought us such a beautiful technique and so easy to follow and so free also. So that is why I said yes. Now, no is simply because if you're already following any other practice, kriya practice, Mohanji always says, go into that, follow that path. And secondly, if you have any other living guru, since Mohanji is the channel, you need to seek his permission. Respect Mohanji, respect this consciousness kriya that Mohanji is giving us, and then you can take this forward, because kriya involves initiation by a living master. That's the key here. So that is why I had to say a yes and a no. With permission from your guru whom you're following in this lifetime, you can come in. And at the same time, if you have taking Mohanji as a guru, then there is no looking back. Okay. And another one point that I would I like to say here is that we do have many consciousness practitioners who have been devotees of Shirdi Sai Baba and other great masters who are not in our body right now. So now all have accepted Mohanji, given him that respect, and are taking forward with this initiation and following the spiritual paths. Yeah. Thank you, Preethi.
Yeah, if you see my own example, I actually got connected to Mohanji through Mahavatar Babaji. So I was in search of, Babaji, and then wanted to get access to Babaji. And then I remember there was this yearning to at least connect to a living master. If Babaji cannot come, or, if I don't have access to him because of my own limitations, then, at least have access to a master, living master, who could probably channel the source. And that's how I got connected. So I know what you mean, and very well, very nicely explained. So if I would actually like to understand, how did each of you guys get to know about Kriya? So was this, did you guys already know about Kriya, and did you search for Kriya and then find consciousness Kriya, or how was the entire journey was like just before you guys started practicing Kriya? How did you get there? How did your journey begin? And I'd like to start with Aditya. Question to you.
Yes, Preeti. So actually my spiritual journey began with Mohanji only.
Okay.
Before that, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know meditation. I didn't know anything. So it started in 2013, and I followed that path only. Yes, I got connected to Shirdi Sai Baba also in the middle, but that was like for a brief period. So I didn't know about Kriya. I met Mohanji for the first time in 2013 and got initiated in 2019. So all these years I didn't know about Kriya. So I think that when I was ready, it came to my plate automatically, and I accepted it. So there was no like desire. Maybe it must have been there in the past lives or something, but I didn't know. I didn't talk to anyone about it. So, but it came to me. So I realized after practicing for some time that it came to me at the right time, and the right things happen to you at the right time when you're ready for them. So you just be, and things will happen to you. So this is how I got Kriya.
So amazing. So basically, you connect to one master, and then that master gets you everything. So that's for many of us. We've gone to multiple, channels and sources, and then we found finally, found Mohanji. So it's heartening to know that it starts and ends with Mohanji for you, Aditya. And what I liked about the entire sharing was the fact that, very honestly saying, I don't even know meditation. Forget about Kriya. I was just lucky. It came and fell on my lap. That was really nice. So, Karthik, how has it been for you? How did you get to know about Kriya and Mohanji and Consciousness Kriya?
For me, it was, I guess, more through a book, because I was in a spiritual process, and as I was going through in a bookshop, I came across this book which was called Mahavatar Babaji and the 18 Siddhas, and that book had a profound impact. I bought that book and I read it, and then I realized that, because until that point of time, even though we've heard about Mahavatar Babaji, Babaji is not someone we connect to. Normal people don't connect to. We have no connection. But then what really helped me in the process was the fact that the parampara goes beyond him. And so when I knew who his gurus were, that his gurus were the great Siddhas and the Rishis, Bhoganadar and Sage Agastya Muni. And the moment I heard Agastya Muni, then all the connection got made, because when we talk about Agastya and Vishwamitra and Vashishta, that is part of our Vedic tradition, and we know them. And that really said, okay, so this is where Kriya comes from. So until then, you don't know what it is, whether it is something which came from a particular guru or where does it come from. But when you know such an exalted lineage, and when you know it comes from Agastya Muni, and Babaji himself sat under the master and with the master and perfected the technique in what is modern day Tamil Nadu today, in Kutralam side. And he sat with the master and he learned, and that information really made it something very special. It was something really special which was passed down. At this point, I would like to say this, which was passed down from sages to extremely qualified students. And you have to understand what was the stature of the guru and what is the stature of the student. The student here is Mahavatar Babaji. So then what is the power and what is the beauty of that technique? And I guess we are very lucky that all of us today are getting such a technique, which Babaji himself had to do enormous amount of tapas to even meet his guru to get that. And then that kind of really interested me a lot, because anything that can take you towards liberation, I think we should embrace that. I always believe that, and if it resonates with you, if it works, and if it is in line with your constitution, then you have, and it's always a good idea to embrace it. So in that process, I also met a few people, but then it did not resonate with me. The technique is very much available, but it did not resonate with me. Now that cannot be explained. It's very subjective. It's intuitive. And then finally, when I met Mohanji, then talking to him and spending a good amount of time with him and discussing and understanding the concept, and somehow I felt like this is it. This is where, and he was also, and he was very clear that you should get into this process, and this process will really help you in your goal, in achieving your goal. So then there was no looking back, and I felt really convinced, and then I applied for Consciousness Kriya.
Lovely. So beautifully, you spoke about the entire lineage, or so to speak, the tradition, which Kriya kind of is passed on from one huge, powerful. I wouldn't even call them masters; they're beyond that, perfected beings to the other, and then finally, people like us getting the opportunity to practice something like this is, I think. It's such a precious gift. And you spoke and you articulated that so well, Karthik. Thank you. And what I also liked about, what you said, that you actually got an opportunity to meet Mohanji, and he kind of told you that, Kriya is the right marga for you. But for for many of us, we might not be having such an opportunity. That way, also, I think grace has been kind when it comes to you. But what I've understood about Consciousness Kriya is that if you have a deep yearning to find the truth, forget about liberation, moksha, whatever, the truth of your existence, the truth of why you're here, what is it that you want to achieve, where do you want to go, and if you want to know that truth intimately, then Kriya is for you. Consciousness Kriya is like a rocket which can cut across a lot of mind voices, mind garbage, a lot of vasanas to actually get you quickly to that truth. So thank you for your sharing your experience. Over to you, Rekha. How did you get to know about Kriya, and how was your journey like?
Beautiful in one word, and it continues to be beautiful. But to start off with, yes, like it said, it's a very, very precious technique, as Karthik and Aditya shared, and you've also been saying. It's so precious and it's so close to my heart. I can go on talking about it, but to keep it short, I would like to say I was at a stage where, I was in a rut, literally total comfort zone, didn't want to extricate myself from that area, bogged down with so many other things, and that cozy thing where we are like, it's like, cobwebs keep adding on to you. It was that kind of a stage where I was in, completely covered with cobwebs. And then I remember you talking to me, Preethi, and casually asked me about joining for Consciousness Kriya, and I said no. But actually what had happened was 25 years earlier, I was with Siddha Yoga. And I know about Kundalini arising and Shaktipat, and I had, experienced all that. And all kinds of, visualization, travel, etc., etc. So many things were there. But somehow I always thought Kriya Yoga was meant for yogis. Yogis, as in the saints and people. And I always felt it was not for me, because I'd read many of the books, like Karthik said, and, all the great saints and people in the Kriya Yoga path, and they had attained the highest. So it was definitely not for somebody as ordinary as me. And then I was with a friend, and we both walked together on the spiritual path. I would say always a different path. The ultimate goal is the same. We were on a different path, spiritual path, but different paths leading to the same goal. I should say that. So she had gotten into the Kriya path and Babaji, and she's a devotee of Babaji. And she would always keep talking to me about Kriya Yoga. So imagine about 20 plus years, 25 years, I've been listening to this talk on Kriya Yoga and the path of Kriya. But no, I still was convinced it was not for me. And then suddenly, once you had asked me to just apply for it. And even then, although I'd met Mohanji by then, and I was doing what little I was doing, my sadhana, and I had, my yoga practices were also continuing. Shirdi Baba was with me. So many things happening. I continued my lifestyle. And then something pushed me, and my friend was telling me, why didn't you apply? Why didn't you apply? And that was when I think, the 20 years or so, finally, there was some light there. And then after you asked me to, I applied. Though I'd fallen ill and I had not bothered about it. And then I applied, and the Kriya team got back in a day's time. And you won't believe it, within a week, I was initiated into Kriya Yoga. So
wonderful. I think that was pre-pandemic times, so things were moving a lot more faster back then. But such a beautiful sharing, yes.
Yeah.
So Lovely. So, how long have each of you all been practicing? Let me start with Aditya. How long have you been practicing Kriya?
It's been almost 1.5 years, more than that, a bit more than that.
Lovely. Okay. So, how's life changed for you after you've practiced consciousness? There has been 1.5 years of regular practice, right? So, how's life
Yes.
changed?
Yes, Preeti. I've experienced a lot of changes after practicing Kriya. So initially, when I started, like I told you, I didn't know much about meditation. I didn't know about Kriya, so it just came to me, and I got initiated, and I started practicing. Initially, I didn't feel much difference, so I was doing it as a daily practice because I was told that you have to do it daily. So I just wanted to do, and I was told that it will take you closer to liberation. So that is my goal, and I wanted to go to liberation, so I just practiced. But a few days into the practice, I started observing my connection with food. I could see the food, how the food I was eating was impacting me. Okay, so that connection was very visible to me, and it kind of sorted my food habits. So I was eating a lot of junk food before that. So after I started practicing that kind of, my body started rejecting that food. So that was one change initially in the first 6 months. That was the only change. And also, I would say that somewhat my sleep requirement also dropped drastically. So before I used to sleep a lot, like sleep all the times, sleep early and wake up late. So Kriya changed that. And that also happened in the first 6 months. When I reached 1 year of practice, I started observing some changes in my breathing patterns and, the Mohanji always says about vertical breathing. I didn't know, I had no idea what it was. So with Kriya practice of 1 year, I could see myself breathing vertically automatically. So it was just happening spontaneously. I was not even trying to do it. So that was another change. And the same time, after 1 year, I got initiated, not initiated, and that's a training into level two. So after level two, as I said that in level one, it was only the awareness of food. But after level two, that awareness grew to everything, like people, you can get contaminated by anything like words, even a YouTube video. So all those things I started noticing in myself and how those things were impacting me. So, but also I noticed that Kriya releases it very fast. So that process of release of contamination becomes very fast with Kriya. So you may feel that pinch a bit, when release is happening, but that's all right, that's worth it. So you would know that awareness also would grow where the contamination is coming from and it is getting released by the practices that you're doing. So yeah, that has been my experience. And now the situation is that I know what information my body and mind accepts and what it rejects. So that also has to grow. I mean, I haven't reached a level where I know everything. I still eat food sometimes, like like anything, but that has changed drastically. And I know where I'm going. That awareness about myself is increasing. So that has been my experience. So it gives you awareness about yourself.
So lovely. So about right down from food in your level one. So two interesting things that came out of this is we have levels in Kriya. So you start with a level one, which is where everybody starts, and then there are various levels. At the moment, we have I think up to level three, which Mohanji is actually train people. I mean, training is out for level 3. And for to move from one level to another level, you need certain kind of, you need to have perfected a level to at least for some amount of time for you to move to the next level. What's interesting is what you said about how at level one you had certain experiences. And then as you move to a level two practice, your experience deepened it, and rather than food, it went to other aspects of the senses also. So watching, hearing, and things like that. That was really interesting when you shared that bit. So thank you. And Karthik, how has it been for you? How did Kriya practice change your life, if at all it did?
Initially, I would say that for me, the practice itself was very powerful, was very, it used to give me a sense of peace and calm. Right after the practice, I would go very deep within myself and wouldn't feel like even, shifting my posture. and just be in that space. And that by itself was a very beautiful experience. And because just to be in that space every single day, and multiple times, as you do the Kriya multiple times, and every time you have that kind of an experience. And I actually would experiment with it also, which was interesting. One is when you do it at the Brahma Muhurta, how you feel it. And then I would go out and after my exercise, that I play tennis, and then after some intense workout and you're so tired and I'm dead, and I'm go sitting in the park. And we have a park right there in our society, and I'm sitting there in a bench, under a tree. And then I would do my second Kriya, and I'm like, okay, what's happening there? you know it's a completely different experience. I can't tell you what it is. But then every single practice, and when you do it in the afternoon, it's a different experience. And it but then every experience has its own, and I always, every time as it ended, no matter what, even if I'm very tired, I always felt that sense of calmness and grounding, which was something very amazing. And over time, as I started doing it more and more, and with respect to my relationship with the outside world, nothing really changes in the outside world. We have to go through what we have to go through. Our prarabdha does not change like that. But how we respond to it, how we respond to what happens is not in our hands, but how we respond to what happens is very much in our hands. So I could see myself responding differently. That is, there was a gap between me and whatever is happening. There was always that time. There was this a time lapse where I could always observe and then respond. So that means I saw myself getting less emotional, and less panic in a particular situation. Or even if you do get that panic or an anxiety, because a lot of things happened post pandemic in my life. It has been quite turbulent. But then I could see that I could come out of it very fast. And then I come into a space from which I can observe what's happening, and okay, now what can I do about it? So it puts you in a positive space where you are slowly coming into that space of witnesshood. And I feel Kriya has played a role in that, for me to, being totally into it, to a point where now I can be a witness to it. I'm still doing whatever I need to do, but I can always withdraw and come back into that space of silence. So I would say that way it has helped me a lot.
It's lovely. I mean, I mean, the thing about practicing Kriya at different times. I mean, it's interesting that you've actually taken the time out to practice it at different times and see how that changed, and how the experience changed for you. And the whole thing about being in a witness consciousness, I think that's something that all of us would, want to or aspire to be in that state. And if you're saying that practicing Kriya regularly automatically puts you in that kind of a state, I think that's pretty interesting. Really, really nice. So thank you, Karthik. Over to you, Rekha. How has Kriya experience been for you? How long have you been practicing Kriya?
I've been practicing for almost 4 years now. And yes, I am progressing, like Aditya said, into the other levels also. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey so far. Because the first thing I would like to tell you is Kriya has given me discipline. The main thing in Kriya is it's the discipline it has given me. That's what, as everybody was sharing now, I was also contemplating on that, and the word that came up for me was discipline. And besides that, it has been such a beautiful journey that has opened many, many doors for me, many doors. Because before Kriya, as I told you in the beginning, like I was in a rut, and it pulled me out completely. You won't believe it, that within a month after Kriya, my entire life changed. change to something very different, I was always in some kind of a race with myself. That completely stopped. That is how I think, the transformation period started for me. Kriya brought in the transformation period. And yes, there are other sadhana practices, everything that happens, which again was brought in by Kriya, I would say, because my loyalty is with Kriya always. And so right from change of place, change of the people around me, people whom I did not need just dropped away. It was, and new people came into my life.
When you say that, I think a lot of people will want to apply for Kriya. People I don't want drops away. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so many new people have come into my life, and that's helped me in my path, helped me to grow, helped me to reach what, like it said, to find the truth. Because all said and done, little things, as we are talking, we are picking up things and learning. So that way, my entire lifestyle changed. What I was resisting for a long time fell away. I would like to just say it in general, because if we go into deeper levels of what exactly happened, it's going to take a long time. So many things happened. And more than anything else, the selfless service came. Totally. I used to do Annadan and all that before. But the way I did it now, with the commitment, with the consistency, and that again opened doors. What happened? My baggage fell away. I'm sure I'm carrying loads more, but all of us are, but a few got dropped off, and it opened doors. Like I said, then Mohanji brought in Maitri for me. He made me an acharya, and there's just no looking back. And all this, the one first step that I took was apply for CK. I think I will end it here because that speaks a lot.
Okay. It's lovely experience, and how Kriya opened so many other doors for you, whether it was Maitri, whether it was being an Acharya, or the beautiful work that you're doing with Tamu Care and the Angan that's open now in Chennai. It's really a beautiful journey, as we see. I mean, I know you guys also because we're part of the same community. So each and every one of you all are really inspiring, and this whole short exercise of speaking to you and trying to understand what Kriya was for you and your experience actually is inspiring me, and I'm sure it's going to be inspiring so many more people to not only be regular with their practice, and if they are not yet trained in Kriya, or if there is a seed of desire to know the truth, or if there's a seed of desire to increase their spiritual connect, then I think this is a great technique. Thank you so much for giving your time and taking time off from your work and having this discussion with us. Thank you so much, Rekha. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Karthik. And I really owe you one, Aditya, because I know I called you at a very short notice. So thank you for that. And until we meet again for our next episode with more Kriya practitioners, it's me, Preethi Gopalarathnam, signing off. Thank you.